onwards, we see that corporations are rolling out, right? So now in 2022 onwards, we see that the enterprises and administrations are getting into IPv6, right? And this is the target of the IPv6 Council in the end in Spain. So if we go to the numbers of Spain, we see a large fixed broadband provider, Digi, that is originally from Romania. And he has 50% of his network with IPv6. So that is, roughly speaking, 1 million customers, right? And then from the mobile point of view, the company I work in, Telefonica, has been able to deploy to 5 million mobile terminals, which is more or less 100% of our coverage in Spain, right? This is the AS for fixed and mobile broadband, and we are 25% now, mainly because it's just the mobile, right? And this has pushed Spain from 3% that we were typically in the past to 12%, right? Still, we are far from numbers of many other countries, but the main operators have recently deployed. So we see that that we are getting all the ISPs on board finally, right? And according to this message, we come back to what Gartner stated in 2021, that they saw that IPv6 is clearly in what they call the slope of enlightenment, and they forecast that it was going to be fully deployed by enterprises in a point between 2026 and 2031, right? Because they were forecasting 5 to 10 years adoption for these organizations, right? The point is that what we see, or that I see, both in the IPv6 Council, but also in my company in Telefonica with my work with multinationals, is that in the countries where we see higher long tail adoption rates, we see the companies much more involved in IPv6, right? So we have, for instance, in my work with multinationals, we have customers in Germany, we have customers in France, in Latin America, and in Spain, and we clearly see a difference on the perception of the need of IPv6 and the IPv6 demand on our solutions, depending on the region they are headquartered, right? So companies that are headquartered in Germany are, for them, IPv6 is a must, right? In the MPLS underlay, SD-WAN overlay, Wi-Fi in their stores, for instance. But in countries where the adoption is lower regarding the long tail, regarding the end users at their homes and their mobile devices, then the perception is not that high, right? And of course, we have very good reference as enterprises, for instance, Meta being almost 100% V6 only, right? Google, Microsoft, that are working on that as well, right? We see also analysts that clearly see that there is a huge increase on the forecasted contribution of IPv6 to the economy, right? We are talking mainly about corporate and public administration budget, right? So in 2020, it was estimated only 1.26 billion for IPv6 specifics, but in 2027, they are forecasting that it's multiplying by 3.5 almost, right? So the point is that all this budget that is appearing, the blue column, this means that is a budget that the companies and organizations will be spending on this, and we need really to instruct the companies to go to the right way, to the right path, to avoid wrong investments, right? And overall, the message that we are spreading to our enterprises and public organizations in Spain is that first, of course, there is a little bit of crisis, right? Because all this starts mainly because there is a problem, right, of business continuity. For instance, I can talk to some multinationals that they are operating in Latin America, and they have a waiting list to get IPv4 addresses, right? They can buy the IPv4 addresses as well, but it takes a lot of money for a resource that makes no sense for that, right? For that money. And also, if they want to get prioritized in these waiting lists, the RIRS, LACNIC in this case, is asking for an IPv6 action plan. It's not just a plan, it's that they are actually deploying IPv6, right? And we see even that there are companies that are very wrongly using before public addressing as private addressing, right? This is something that it comes from my mind when I was a network auditor guy, that it was one of the first risks that we were rising up, right? But still, it's something that we see in some organizations, and this is terrible from the point of view of IP architecture, right? And also, there is a problem of business continuity because we see more users at the IPv6 channel, and we start to see solutions like Tajib that was describing SRv6 that are not possible if you are not using IPv6. Again, you cannot use the latest standard for home IoT, Mather and Thread, if you are not using IP6 and 6 low pan for the low pan networks, right? So it really means business continuity. This is the part of the crisis, right? But as in any crisis, there is a big part, a big portion of opportunity, right? And here is where our role comes, right? Yes, this is something that you can do for business continuity and simplification, right? This is a must. But there are innovation threads you can get, and you can lead as well, right? And you can adopt for your customers, for your solutions, for your services. First one that I would highlight is the cloud networking at scale. No surprise, as Latif pointed out, that AWS is one of the big pushers of IPv6 today. Yesterday, celebrating the what they called the AWS World IPv6 Celebration Day, that they celebrated in many places in the world, like Singapore, like San Francisco, New York, and London, for instance, right? And with a roadshow, with some presentations, etc. And it is clear that they see that a lot of big customers of the clouds are coming up with very complex backend architectures because they are dealing with V4 and NAT because it's the only thing that they know, right? They are starting even to pay for V4 public addressing, right? As you know, since February this year for some of the clouds. And this is the opportunity. Have a much more efficient backend in the public clouds, in your hybrid data centers in the end, but also save money from this before addresses acquisition or payment in the cloud, right? We have also another innovation that Tajib was describing extremely well. That is the programmable wide area networks with SRv6. I've been told by Cisco, one of the main implementers, together with Huawei and many others, that they are implementing today more SRv6 than SRMPLS, and they have very large companies, right, adopting this. For instance, we saw in the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona a couple of years ago, Alibaba was showing that their full stack network was working with SRv6, and we know, and it's very easy if you go to the related IETF working group, you see an American bank working on this as well, right? So this is something in production that if you are not deploying IPv6, you are missing as a company, right? So it's extremely important because SRv6 has started mainly with ISPs, but it's moving quickly to enterprises as well, right? We have the point of this big alliance that AWS, Apple, Google, Samsung, and more than 200 companies have established regarding home IoT, which is basically that your network, your IoT network at home will handle IPv6 over Wi-Fi or IPv6 over 6 low pan, the Zigbee radio, in case you are using a low pan devices, right? And this is extremely important in the master that where I collaborate as a teacher in the Carlos III University of Madrid. I explained to my postgrad pupils, many working in companies like Ericsson, for instance. How relevant is this? That you can go to a big mall, sorry for the names, like IKEA or Leroy Merlin or places like this, and you can buy IoT devices for your home, and they are already supporting this standard, right? And this means that in your home, an IPv6 network will be created even if your provider is not giving you IPv6 access. And this is really important. And this shows very well how things are going forward. And finally, Latif was describing new trends where IPv6 has a role, because in the end, we have an internet economy today, and the internet is changing to V6, right? And soon to V6 only. So there will be many characteristics of IPv6 that will be exploited by the upper layers, right? We have heard from Latif, blockchain, BSV, right? But there will be for sure many innovations regarding metaverse, data at scale that AI needs, right? That will consider characteristics that come from the underlying layers like IPv6, right? And the structure of the council, we are focusing in companies and public organizations, as I said before. So our focus is to attract different sectors: pharma, banking, physical security, not just IT security, energy and utilities, and retail, right? The members that are collaborating in a volunteer manner and in the best effort way come from universities, come from public authorities as well, the academic network in Spain, Red Iris, networking companies that are mainly vendors, right? ISPs, and cloud CDN companies, right? And of course, consulting and training is extremely crucial for the enterprises and administrations to move on, right? Any suggestion, any material that you want to get from us, because all the material we are producing is open, right? Is based on open licenses in the end, right? Common common licenses as well, and we are creating some
Mr.
resources
Carlos,
like,
I'm sorry, we are running out of time. Can you make your presentation a little faster? Can you present it a
yeah,
little faster?
sure.
Yeah,
I
thank
will
you.
be ending in a couple of minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We have a couple of videos in English. You have in the slides, you have the URL, right, that you could use yourself as well. And then in the council, we have very nice open session program with Alexandra Huides describing all the things he has made, with Arturo Servín from Google, with Fernando Gont, which is one of the big voices in IPv6 security, right? And Eric Nygren from Akamai as well, right? And the last slide, right, and with this I finish, is that we have next week on Thursday a presential meeting in Madrid. Sorry, it will not be it will not be online, an online meeting. And here we have got very good speakers. We have Antonio Ojea, that is one of the implementers of IPv6 in Kubernetes. So he will explain why Kubernetes are much more efficient, and the pods of Kubernetes with IPv6 are really the solution to go to. Cloudflare will explain how their companies are using, the banking companies in Spain are using their transparent proxy to be accessible over IPv6. Federica Chufo from AWS will explain why AWS is pushing so much. And Fernando Garcia from Meta will explain how they are removing the latest before addresses in their edge network, in a similar presentation that it was made in the RIPE in Krakow a couple of weeks ago. We will be explaining from Telefonica the deployment to our mobile users, and that 52% of the whole traffic of the network is V6. Pablo Camarillo from Cisco will explain SRv6. And we have the hacker of Telefonica reporting to the president of Telefonica, having an open session with open questions about cybersecurity and IPv6. I hope we can record the sessions. They will be in Spanish, but nowadays all these things can be easily translated. And we have a roundtable as well for companies and administration with Jordi Palet telling how he's deploying IPv6 for many governments as well. So thank you very much. This is all from my side. I hope you enjoyed the presentation the same way I did when I was making that for you. And I hope your feedback as well. right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carlos. Thank you for your valuable contribution. Um, Next, we would like to request Mr. Lawrence, IPv6 and PKI specialist, IPv6 Forum, who is connected with us remotely to present his address titled IPv6 Software Development. Mr. Lawrence?
Hello, let me share my screen here.
Sure, Mr. Lawrence.
Just a moment. Okay. Okay, it says I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Lawrence, we can see yours.
Okay, very good. All right, what I'm going to be talking about is a new IPv6 forum training initiative. I'm in charge of the IPv6 software development initiative at IPv6 Forum, and I've created a new course that is badly needed right now. It's called CNP6, so Certified Network Programmer for IPv6. Basically, if you go to education.ipv6forum.com, you'll see the curricula for several IPv6 related classes. Each IPv6 Forum certified trainer creates their own course material, PowerPoints and labs and so on. The current ones fall into several areas: network engineering, like CNE6 Silver and Gold; cybersecurity, CSE6 Silver and Gold; software development, the new CNP6. There's also ones on network deployment for 5G and IoT security professional. But although CNP6 is listed, it's not a current curriculum for that. And I think I may be the first one to actually put together a course on it. But we're certainly the first ATP to offer it that I can find. But anyway, it's very different from the engineering and cybersecurity courses, as it targets software developers who typically don't have a lot of expertise in network engineering. It requires strong background in both network engineering and software to put this together. It's critical for enterprise v4 to v6 migration, as all apps must be migrated to support IPv6 for migration to actually happen. I happen to be, my day job right now is to help migrate one of the large US government agencies from IPv4 to IPv6. And they're making reasonable progress on the hardware change, but they're just beginning to understand that they've got thousands of legacy IPv4 applications that are going to have to be migrated. And their developers don't really understand how to do that. And so I'm trying to bridge that gap there and help them understand what's new and different. Okay, so basically for the network engineers, there's CNE6 Silver and Gold, which I've been teaching for quite some time. I've actually been teaching IPv6 for 20 years now. I've certified quite a few engineers. Basically, historically, I've done mostly live in-service training for maybe 10 or 20 people at a time. And the IPv6 Forum estimates there may be as many as 20 million engineers that need to come up to speed. And 10 to 20 people at a time is just not going to make it. And so one of the things I've done is I've started actually moving my training to online Udemy courses. And so if you go to Udemy and search for CNE6, you'll actually find my course there. And it's the complete content of what I do when I do the in-person training, but at a dramatically lower cost. Historically, the in-service training has run for about $3,000 per person for a 4 to 5 day class. And I'm trying to take that to the next level by making it much more affordable and much larger scale. And so it used to be you publish books for things like this. Today, you need to have online classes. And so I'm trying to go to where the users are there by creating this. For cybersecurity, there's two courses, CSE6 Silver and Gold, which go into how to secure IPv6. Now there's the CNP6. Basically, this is very different, again, as it targets software developers, not network or cybersecurity engineers. The target audience are software developers in enterprise, telcos, and ISPs, and of course also government agencies. We include a section on IPv6 basics so that the developers would not need to take CNE6 before taking CNP6, but they can understand the network engineering in CSE6 and security, and that would make them a much better IPv6 software developer. So my organization has created training decks, hands-on labs, certification exam for CNP6, and done some live classes. Anyway, this material is particularly critical for any enterprise migrating from IPv4 to IPv6, and especially those migrating to IPv6 only. If you're going to dual stack, your legacy apps will still work. When you go to IPv6 only, a IPv4 only app is useless. It will not work in an IPv6 only environment. And so you've got to migrate at least to dual stack to support IPv6 in order to run in a v6 only environment. In dual stack networks, legacy IPv4 will continue to work, but in IPv6 only networks, all applications must be migrated to support IPv6. There can be no v4 dependencies anymore. This is where the real work lies in enterprise migration to IPv6 only. Okay, so basically, there are three parts of it. The first part is the IPv6 basics, which is a review of how IPv6 works. It's a very simplified, shortened version of CNE6. Then there's a review of relevant sections of a white paper we put together on best practices on how to develop things for IPv6. And that white paper is available through the IPv6 forum now. Basically, this covers IPv6 software development concepts and standards. It also covers the tools needed to migrate legacy v4 applications. Then there's the hands-on labs, and this is the core of it. I didn't just create little snippets. I created entire working client-server applications for UDP and TCP, for IPv4 only, IPv6 only, and dual stack. Currently in C#.NET, I'm planning to make versions of these apps in other languages like Java. We basically cover each app and have the student build and run them, and they can actually use these as starting points for their own code and so on. Historically, if you wanted to learn how to code IPv6, what most people said, well, just go read the open source code. Well, the open source code is sometimes not the best written code or the best designed, and it also typically has lots of things that are not relevant to the networking, like how to build a web server for Apache, things like that. So basically, I created things that are very, very simple protocols, just an echo protocol. Like, for instance, I send a string and the server converts it to uppercase and sends it back, so that you can concentrate on the networking aspects. This approach is based on the classic text on Unix network programming by Richard Stevens, but I've now upgraded that approach to include IPv6 and dual stack. A gold level course, CNP6 Gold, would include TLS, salting the hash and password database, X509 strong client authentication, and other advanced design techniques. So basically, the UDP examples include simple sender and server for sender and receiver for IPv4 only, IPv6 only, dual stack. The TCP includes simple client and server applications for all three, and so on. So basically, the dual stack TCP is the most complex because you have to be able to accept connections on both v4 and v6 at the same time. That requires advanced concepts like multi-threading, or being able to have the select statement be able to accept connections from two different sockets. We're not currently covering any advanced APIs for things like ping requests. We may add that. Again, we're also not covering multicast yet. I may add that in the future. But basically, the code illustrates best practices using the correct APIs and based on the real RFCs and things like that. And it's also well commented. They're fully functional and can be used as starting points for your own applications. Programmers learn best from real working code, but most code they have access to has a lot of complexity that isn't relevant to IPv6. and so on. So these apps focus on the core networking functions. Okay, I also use Wireshark to actually capture things so you can see what's really going on. I don't have time to go over much in this particular talk, but as an example, I show how to actually get the IPv6 addresses and IPv4 addresses from DNS and use those to actually create listening sockets on the server and to make outgoing connections in the client. Then we'd actually use datagrams for the UDP and stream for the TCP. So basically, this is an example of some of the code. The actual applications are not just snippets like this, but complete working code that they can bring up and actually make connections between the client, the server, or between the sender and the receiver. Basically, you can see we've actually created an online network that you can do these things in. So you can either do these exercises on your own dual stack networks, but if you don't have that, we've actually brought up a VM type lab that you can connect to. We're using this, they're at Active, but basically these VMs are full dual stack nodes running Windows 10 in a dual stack network. You could also do this in EVE-NG if you happen to have that. Anyway, so this is essentially what the little network that we've set up. So it's a complete working network with Windows Server 2022 providing Active Directory, dual stack DNS, dual stack DHCP, and so on. And then there's a bunch of VMs running. So this is what we've set up. It would be easy for anybody to replicate this. I'll be glad to help you do that. We happen to use pfSense for the firewall to allow people to connect in from IPv4 only over RDP. And then once they're in, they're on a full dual stack network. And so that means they don't have to have IPv6 to learn this. Okay. So,
Mr. Lawrence? Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Yes, so basically that's what's going on with the CNP6. I'm also pioneering some very interesting things with end-to-end direct with security using what I call pure TLS, which IPv6 has made possible. So if anybody's interested in that, I can also provide presentations on that. But this is a very exciting thing that's going to make it possible to do the final move from IPv4 to IPv6. We can't just concentrate on the network engineering or the cybersecurity anymore. We've got to bring the software developers along and have them understand how to actually code things now for IPv6. So if there are any questions?
Any questions? No, I don't think there's any questions, Mr. Lawrence. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this information with us, Mr. Lawrence.
Sure.
Next, I would just give me 1 minute, so I will just discuss about what is next online in the agenda for the internal executive committee. Will discuss about a few things in the future, and we'll also discuss this. We'll also share this with us, with all of you, after our meeting, after our internal meeting. And one more thing is all the slides that's being shared here is already uploaded on the website, and you can access them. It is there in the agenda itself. In the agenda, when you click on the title, you can see the slides. Okay, it is looking very small, but yeah, the first point is we are looking at the founding members of the council. Right now it is free, the membership is free, but we don't know what is going to happen in the future. But and then we're also going to discuss about the capacity building plan in the APAC IPv6 region. Also regarding the policy and regulatory support, we also need all your support for this to collaborate together and engage with international IPv6 initiatives to foster global collaboration, like I said now. We also are communicating with the member states looking at the IPv6 adoption rates. And also there's a member registration link here. It's free. Like I said, it's free now. So you have to go to our website, and inside the membership, there's a membership registration link. I will also share all this information with you through your mail. Now may we invite Prof. Suresh to present the ceremonial gift to Ms. Tuti as a token of appreciation. This side. This side. Also, we request all the guests and the speakers to come here in the front so we all can take a group picture. Yeah, we need the background if possible.
Light falling on you.